Good Shabbos. Boker Tov. We're together. Let's sing. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine means behold, but what it really means is behold with an exclamation point. Remember, when the Bible was being constructed 3,000 years ago, they had no punctuation. They just had words, and there was a sense of what it meant. So hine means behold. Wow, how exciting. Shevarachim gam yachad. How beautiful it is that we are all together. And by your joining in, you're fulfilling that sentence from the book of Proverbs. And now we'll put on the tallis if you have a tallis. If you don't have a tallis, of course, you won't put one on. But if you don't have a tallis and you're interested in acquiring one, there are some that are fairly inexpensive and easy to come by, and there are some that are more elegant and more expensive, and it's your choice as to how you want to spend your money or not. But when you put a tallis on, if you're so inclined to just meditate for a few moments, what you're really doing is you're enwrapping yourself symbolically in the Shema. We all know the Shema. Shema Israel, hear each other, O Israel. Listen, all of Israel. There's only one God. And that sits upon your shoulders. When we say the Shema, we're talking to all of the Jewish people simultaneously. And they are listening to each one of us. So the constituent parts of, as we know, somewhat 13, 14 million people around the world are simultaneously attentive. We may not be agreeing with each other, but we're all listening to each other. And when you put this garment on, you feel the power of that. The last few words are Asher Kitchanu b'mitzvotav vitzivanu lehitatef, not tape, lehitatef, but tzitzit, which means blessed are you, God, who has made us holy with the commandments of being enwrapped in the tzitzit. Baruch Atornoi Eloheinu melech olam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav vitzivanu lehitatef b'tzitzit. And if you have a Siddur, you're invited to turn with us. We begin this morning with the Birchot HaShachar, the early morning blessings, on page 103, and then moving on to page 104. And if you don't have a Siddur, but you remember the blessings, of course, please join in. And if you happen to not know the blessings and you want to say Amen at the end of each bracha, you're considered as having fulfilled the entire tradition. So we have three options. Having the Siddur, perhaps learning some of it by memory, and also listening to each other and saying Amen. If you're so able, you're invited to rise at this time, pages 103 and 104. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam Asher natan l'sechvi v'ino l'havchin ben yomu ben loyla. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam sha'asani b'tzalmo. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam sha'asani ben chorin. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam sha'asani Yisrael. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kifufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asa li kol tzarki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael bigvura. And we're stopping for a minute because the next to last blessing has some beautiful spiritual imagery within. The phrase is Oter Yisrael B'tifara. Oter means literally to crown, placing a crown upon one's head, coronation. The English is, blessed are you, God, ruler of the universe, who crowns the nation of Israel with divine glory. Imagine what it means that God shares some of God's own glory and majesty upon each and every one of us, and each one of us is crowned. God is attending you at your coronation. That's how we prepare ourselves to, after these brachot, these blessings, to start our day during the days of the week. And of course, on Shabbat, we take a little bit more time. We have a little bit of a longer service and we read the Torah. But on the regular days of the week, as you're getting ready to go out into the world, run errands or go to work, remind yourself that God is crowning you. God is placing a crown of glory upon your head. Fantastic. Last line. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten le'ef koach. Today and every day, may you, O God, look upon us, and may all who see us look upon us with eyes filled with kindness, love, and compassion. Act towards us with kindly love. Baruch atah Adonai, who acts with kindly love to the people of Israel. I'm still letting that spin throughout my head. The very last blessing, of course, speaks about chesed, and God is acting towards us with kindly love and inspiring people in the world to act with kindly love to each and every one. But just pause and consider for a moment what it means that God has placed a crown. And in fact, God is reaching up to you. Wow, what a sense of honor that is. The Psalm for Shabbat is on page 112. Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat, tov lehodot la'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, lahagid baboker chasecha, be'emunatcha balelot, alei asor v'alei navel, alei higayon bechinor. Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat, tov lodot la'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ki simachtan Adonai b'folecha, b'maaseh yadecha aranen, ma'galo ma'asecha Adonai ma'od, hamkum machshavotecha. Mizmor shir liyom haShabbat, tov lodot la'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon. In the center on the English side, You, Adonai, are exalted for all time. Surely your enemies, Adonai, surely your enemies will perish. All who commit evil will be scattered. What does that mean? Who could be an enemy of God? The psalm answers with that same phrase. All who commit evil will be scattered. Anyone who does evil is considered an enemy of God. And if you are doing evil in the world, you're going to lose your way, and you're going to drift apart, and you're going to be distanced from God. So the opposite is somebody who does good in the world. And somebody who does good in the world is going to be close to God, to the absolute distillation, the purity of goodness. And that's the last two stanzas. The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai. The righteous flourish in our God's courtyards. Number one, righteous sense that they are close to God, so it's our God. And number two, it's as if righteous people have been planted and are being tended in God's own private place. Of course, we're talking symbolically and poetically. How does it make you feel? Oh, you know, beseva de sheni vanim you lagi kishona trova tabo. The Baruch Shamar, beginning the Psuke de Zimra, is on page 122. Page 122, Baruch Shamar. Up until now, we were just waking up within the prayer service. Now we're starting our preliminary section, which gets to the main section. The preliminary section is called Psuke de Zimra on page 122. Baruch Shamar v'haya ha'olam Baruch Hu Baruch Oseh v'reshit Baruch Omer v'oseh Baruch Ozer u'mekayim Baruch merachem al haaretz Baruch merachem al habriot Baruch mishalem sachar tov lireov Baruch chai la'ad v'kayam la'netzach Baruch podeh u'matzil Baruch Shemo. On the English side, the singular one who gives life to the world, the sovereign who is praised and glorified forever and ever. This is your great name. Baruch atah Adonai, sovereign, celebrated with songs of praise. Yochid chehol amim melech mishubach umufawar adei ad shmo hagadol Baruch atah Adonai nachol avatish v'chod. And now we turn to the Ashrei on page 136. And if you're just joining us, we're glad that you're joining us for services this Shabbos morning. And we're back in the big sanctuary. It's time to change things up just a little bit. We've been in the small chapel for a number of weeks. And just standing here and seeing that beautiful gold ark kind of lifts me up. And furthermore, as I mentioned back in August, I asked people to send in photographs so that we would have the photographs of members of the shul for the high holidays, and we still have them here. And we have some photographs and pictures of people in the small chapel, and many still here in the sanctuary. And if you haven't yet sent in a photograph, it's not too late. I'd love to have a picture of you. And this way, we're looking at each other when we're singing the prayers and praying together. Ashrei on page 136, concluding with the Zecher line, which means, oh God, we are remembering. Ashrei yoshvei veitecha, od yalucha selo. Ashreham shekachalo, Ashreham sharonoi Elohov, Tehillah David, Aromimcha Elohai HaMelech, Va'avarcha Shimcha Leolam Va'ed, B'chol Yom Avarcheka, Va'ahallah Shimcha Leolam Va'ed, Gadol Adonai Umhalal Me'od, V'lig Dulato Ein Cheker, Dor Lador Yeshabach Masecha, Uvuratecha Yagidu, Hadar Kavod Hodecha, V'divrei Niflaotecha Asicha, Ve'ezuz Nor Otecha Yomeru, Ugedulatcha Asapano, Zecher Rav Tuvacha Yabiu, Vetzid Katacha Yeranenu. At the bottom of the page, Tehillat Adonai Yedaber Pi, Vivorech Kol Basar Shem Kachol Elam Voed, V'anachnu Nevarech Yah Me'atav Yad Olam, Hallelujah. And now on page 141. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. El Bekodsho, hallelujah, hallelujah, Berkia Uzon, hallelujah, 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 Big Vorotav, hallelujah, hallelujah, Karov, good Lord. Hallelujah, 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 B'cheka shofar, hallelujah, hallelujah, B'nevel v'chinor, hallelujah, 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 B'tof O machol, hallelujah, hallelujah, B'minim ve'ugav, hallelujah, 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 B'tzil Slay Shama, hallelujah, hallelujah, B'tzil Slay Trua, Kol Hanshama Tehalelia, Kol Hanshama Tehalelia, Kol Hanshama Tehalelia, hallelujah, Kol Hanshama Tehalelia, hallelujah. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la. Kol Hanshama, every soul, every breath has an opportunity to demonstrate goodness and righteousness. What a powerful message. And it's so simple. The Hebrew is simple, and the message behind it is simple and powerful simultaneously. With every breath, you and I can bring righteousness and goodness into the world. With every function of our being, we can conduct ourselves with justice and compassion and love for fellow man. The Shochenad is on page 147. 147 is the first little red arrow, Shochenad. Shochenad Borom V'kadosh Shemo V'chatuv Ranenu Tzadikim Baronoi Laisharim Nava Tehillah B'fi Yesharim Tithalal Uvedivrei tzadikim titbarach, uvashon chasidim titramam, uvekerev kedoshim titkadash, uvamakalot rivavot hamcha beit Yisrael. David ben Yishai, Avdecha Meshichecha, the top of 148. Yishtabach Shimcha Lo Ad Malkeinu, Ha'el HaMelech, HaGadol VeHaKadosh, Bashamayim U'Va'aretz, Ki Lecha Noe Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elokei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Shir u'shvacha, Halel v'zimra, Ozu memshala, Netach gidula u'gevura, Tehila v'tiferet, Kiddusha u'malchut, Brachot v'orot me'ata v'yarolam, Baruch atah Adonai, El melech gadol v'tishbachot, El ha'odot Adonai niflaot, Habocher b'shirei zimra, Melech elchei ha'olamim. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabo, Amen. Be'alma divrach hirtei v'mechakutei, B'chayechon v'yom echon, Uv'chayerecho be'et Yisrael, B'agala v'zman kariv imru, Amen. Yehei shemei rabam, mevarach l'olam l'mayo, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitfarach v'yithadar v'yitaleh, v'yitalach shmei d'kudusha, brechu, le'lam min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damram yomam v'imru, Amen. We rise, please, Borchu, page 149 and 150, facing the ark. Baruch hu et Adonai ha'mevorach. Baruch Adonai ha'mevorach le'olam v'oed. Top of 150. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer or vorei choshech, Oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space, forming light and creating darkness, bringing harmony while creating all. And as we're seated, we're turning to page 151 today. We haven't done this in a little while, but if we don't practice every once in a while, we might forget. This is the El Adon, and the beauty of this piece is found in its poetry, speaking of light and the stars and the planets and the cosmos. We're supposed to look at the heavens with a sense of awe, appreciating the grandeur. Just this past week, the NASA rover landed on Mars. Over 300 million miles of journey. And it landed. Not only is the technology and the precision and the engineering and the design and the complexity of the mathematics fantastic, of all the multiple dozens of people involved in that search for knowledge. But when you think about, when you've seen the images of the red planet up this close, you realize how beautiful the world is, the universe, and how much more we have yet to discover. El Adon al kol ha'ma'asim, baruch u'mevarach b'fi kol neshama, gadol v'tuvo malei olam, da'at u'tfuna sovavim moto, hamit gai al chayot hakodesh v'nera b'chavod al ha'merkava, zechut u'mishor lifnei chiso, chesed v'rachamim lifnei chavodo. Tovim ma'orot shebara Eloheinu yitzaram, bedat bevina uvaskel, koach ugvura hanatan bahem, Liot moshlim bekeref tevel. Maleim ziv fikim noga. Noez ziv machol Samachim b'tzeitam v'sasim b'voam osim b'yem aritzon konam pe'er v'chavod notnim lishmo tzahala v'rina l'zecher malchuto kara l'shemesh v'yithrach or ra'a v'hitkin surat halvanav shevach nonim lo kol tzava maram tiveretu gedula Surafim Yofanim V'chayot HaKodesh Yadai Dai 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 Yadai Dai 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 Yadai Dai 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 Yadai Dai Dai Yadai Dai 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 Yadai Dai 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 Yadai Dai 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 Yadai Dai 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 Yadai Dai 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 Yadai Dai 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 Dai. And the last three lines of English on page 153. There's a little red arrow. In God's goodness, the work of creation is renewed each day, as the psalmist declared, "Thank the Creator of the great lights, for God's love is everlasting. Cause a new light to shine on Zion, and may we all soon be worthy of its illumination. Baruch atah Adonai, Creator of lights." One more time, the quote marks, "Thank the Creator of the great lights, for God's love is everlasting." That's a phrase in the book of Psalms, which puts forth the attitude that the lights in the heavens, the sun, the moon, the stars, are all an expression to bring beauty into the universe for us to enjoy. The physical creation in which we find ourselves is manifest because of God's love for people. So when you see a beautiful starry night, remember Chesed. We're on page 154. The last stanza, if you have a talit, we gather the four tzitziot on the four corners, reminding us that every day we reach out to Jewish people who are distant from us to bring them in. V'havienu l'shalom me'arba kanfot haaretz v'tolichenu komemiyut le'artzenu ki el poel yeshuot ata Uvanu v'acharta mikolam v'lashon v'keraftanu l'shimcha hagadol stella bemet lodot l'cha ol yachedcha ba'ava baruch atah Adonai habocher b'mo Yisrael be'ahava. Page 155, the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, b'chol levavcha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol me'odecha, v'hayo Hadavarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech u'v'shachpecha v'kumecha u'kishartam la'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha Otavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha. The middle of page 156. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor Taber el bnei Yisrael mimarta lehem v'yasu lehem tzitzit al kanfei v'gdeihem l'dorotam, v'natnu al tzitzit, hakanaf v'til tachelet, v'yalachem l'tzitzit, uritem oto, uzchartem et kol mitzvot Adonai, v'asitem otam, v'lo tatura, acharei levavchem v'acharei einechem, asher atem zonim achareihem. L'man tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kerushim leloechem ani Elohechem asher tzeti etchem meretz Mitzrayim liot lachem lelohim ani Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. We just said in the Vayomer paragraph, the third paragraph of the Shema, that these tzitzit remind us of a number of things. Number one, nobody else on the planet wears a garment with these special fringes. So we're unique. Number two, because of the numbers of the coils and the wraps and the dots and the knots and so on, playing with numbers, and every Hebrew letter is like a number. Remember, Chai is 18? Well, 39, which is the number of wraps here, 39, 39, 39, 39 represents Adonai Echad. There is one God. So on the four corners, I have God is one, God is one, God is one, God is surrounding me. And furthermore, the word tzitzit, here in the Siddur is a code word for representing all the mitzvahs in the Torah. So numerically, God is one, God is one, God is one, God is one. Symbolically, all the mitzvahs in the Torah, all the mitzvahs in the Torah, all the mitzvahs in the Torah, all the mitzvahs in the Torah. Not to mention that nobody else has this. And that sits upon us when we choose to don this garb. And by the way, talit means garment or garb. It doesn't have anything to do with the concept of prayer, because wearing this is much more than prayer. Wearing this is identity. Pardon me. The Michamocha on page 158. Michamocha boilim Adonai, Michamocha Nedar b'kodesh norati lot osefele shira chadasha shibchu geulim l'shimcha sevatayam yachad kulam hodu v'michu v'amro Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed tzur Yisrael kuma be'ezrat Yisrael Uvarech Nemecha Yehuda v'Yisrael Go Aleinu Adonai Tzvot Shemo Kedosh Yisrael. On page 159 and 160 we begin aloud, and thereafter, if you have the Siddur, we continue on in silence until 166, or perhaps you compile your own private thought and personal prayers. A reminder, at the beginning of the Midah, we take 3 small steps, backwards and then forwards. We're doing so to remind ourselves that we are standing in the presence of God, and we need to assume a certain different kind of a posture. So 3 small steps. Adonai, Vatai, Tiftach, Ufi, Yagid, Tilatecha. Back 1, 2, 3. The fourth brings us together. 1, 2, 3. The fourth brings us together. Beginning aloud, continuing in silence. Adonai, Sabatai, Tiftach, Ufi, Yagid, Tilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor Vanara, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei HaKol, V'zocher Chaste Avot V'imahot, Umevi Goel Livnei V'nehem, L'ma'an Shmo B'Ahava. Melech Ozer, Ufakeru Moshiach Umagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ufaked Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayim Eitim Atah, Rav Lahoshia, Mashiva Ruach Mrida Gashem, Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed, Mechayim Eitim Berachamim Rabim, Samek Noflim Verofech Olim, O Matir Asurim, O Mekayim Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Bal Gevurot, O Mido Melach, Melech Memit, O Mechaye, O Matmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Atal Chayot Meitim, Baruch Atah Adonai, B'chayei HaMeitim. And now the full Kaddish. We're excited. Neil Sass is leading a full Kaddish. It's on page 167.
Iskadal, Shema, Rabal, Bialma, Dibra, Kurisev, Yamlik, Makusev, Kun of Yamekun, Yedika, Basis, Royal, Baka, always Makari, Yamaru, Amen. Yeheshme, Rabal, Magorach, the Olam, Maya Maya. Isbarak, Istabak, Isbarvis, Romavius, Nasavius, Adarvis, Alevis, Alosh, made the Kudashop,
Rehu,
Laylam, and Kobra Kasa, Vashirasa. Tushbakasa, Vadekhamasa, Dami, Rambi, Homhovi, Yamru, Amen. Tiskabel, Salosa, Urus, Ahon, Dechobi, Yisrael, Kadam, Avu, Hon, Tibishmaya, Yamaru,
Amen.
Yeheslam, Rabba, Menshemaya, Chayim, Alen of Yaka, Yisrael, Yamaru,
Amen.
O Seshalom, Bimramov, Hu Yaseshalom, Alen of Yaka, Yisrael, Yamaru, Amen.
Yishakog, Neil, we begin the Torah service with the Vayihi bin Soa. The Ark is opened on page 168. Vayihi bin Soa, page 168. Vayihi bin Soa Haaron, Vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai, ve'afutzu oevecha, ve'anusu mesanecha, mipanecha, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udavar Adonai, mirushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, La'amo Yisrael, b'kedushato. And now the Shema and the Echad on page 171. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. Gadol Adonai Tin Ramama Shmo Yachdav Lecha Adonai HaGedula VeHaGevura VaTiferet VeHaNetzach VeHahod Kichol Bashamayim Uvaretz Kichol Bashamayim Uvaretz Adonai HaMamlacha V'minaseh l'chol rosh Romemo, Romemo Adonai Eloheinu Ve'ishtachavu, Ve'ishtachavu Lahadam Raglav Kadoshu Romemo, Romemo Adonai Eloheinu Ve'ishtachavu, Ve'ishtachavu Lehar Kodsho, Lehar Kodsho Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Shkoyach, David, as always, Shkoyach, making such a difference for all of us. Toda Rabbah. The Torah reading for today is found, if you have the Chumash, on page 508. Page 508. It's the 28th chapter of Exodus, the 28th chapter of Exodus, Shemot chapter 28. The name of this week's parsha is Tetzaveh. Last week was Teruma. This week is Tetzaveh. These are two Torah readings that outline the design phase of the tabernacle. And then next week is Kitisa. We'll talk about that next week. And then the following week is Vayakhel and then Pekudei. So we have two Torah readings last week and today, the outline of the design phase, skip a week, and then two Torah readings describing in great detail the construction phase of the first worship site. And that's, of course, in Hebrew known as the Mishkan, in English, the tabernacle. Along with the furnishings that established a very special mood and atmosphere for the community of Israel in its worship, we also have a description of the garb worn by Aaron, the high priest. He's known in Hebrew as Aharon Kohen Hagadol, the high priest. And of course, he had 4 sons, and they were assistants. They were Kohanim. And then there were other assistants. And the other assistants are the entire tribe of Levi. Just to put things in perspective, you had 5 Kohanim, 5 Kohanim, and 22,300 Levi. So someday we'll talk about what that means. For now, the Torah reading is on page 508. It's verses 31 through 35. V'asitat mi elai folk l'tachelet v'yafi rosho b'tocho safayeh l'fiv saviv maseh reg k'fi tachra yelo lo yikareya v'asita al shulav ribonei tachel v'agaman v'tolat shani al shulav saviv u'famonei zahav b'tocham saviv Pa'amon, Zahav Rimon, Pa'amon zahav verimon, al shulei amiyos aviv, v'yaron l'sharet v'nishma kolo bivo, el kodesh livnei Adonai, u'v'tzei tov lo yamut. It's a special garb worn by Aaron, the high priest, and he has this robe, and upon the hem of the robe we have Pa'amon Zahav Rimon, Pa'amon Zahav Rimon, this bell and this woven pomegranate. And the pomegranate was of golden thread, woven. And these bells and these little pomegranates were upon the hem of the robe, 36 bells and 36 pomegranates. Pomegranates are considered an art form, a beautiful piece of artwork, and we have depictions of pomegranates in many different aspects of ancient Israelite life, not only on the garb of the high priest, when people are coming together and he is supposed to be inspiring them and touching their mind and heart and spirit, but in other elements as well. In fact, the oldest Israelite artifact to date that's been found is a small ivory pomegranate. It's 2,800 years old, just a piece of artwork. And ask, why are pomegranates so important? Pomegranates are identified as one of the 7 species, the agricultural species that typify the land of Israel: wheat, barley, grapes, figs, dates, olives, and pomegranates. Now, why pomegranates? I don't know, but I'm going to make up an answer. I think it's because the pomegranate has a built-in crown. And crowns are important Jewish elements and symbols. So the fruit itself represents the authority or the regal nature of God, of the land of Israel. The land of Israel itself has a regal quality to it. So bell and pomegranate. Bell is pa'amon. So each one of these, as we know, is a pa'amon. Each one of these is a pa'amon. It's a bell. But guess what? This item as a whole is called a rimon, a pomegranate, as is this one. You know, the crowns on the big Torah are crowns. But these small little items that people don't really know how to describe them are called rimonim, pomegranates, based upon this Torah reading. Every time we take the Torah out, in effect, we're thinking about Aaron stepping forward and joining the people of Israel, dressed to the nines, to excite them about being in the presence of love and creativity, the ultimate God. In a moment, we will offer the Misha Baruch, the prayer of healing, and then we'll continue on with our service. If you know someone who's ill, please mention that person's name at this time, along with the names that we have here on our list. And we offer a prayer. Misha Baruch et Sheri Shem Tov, Moshe Aharon ben Fega, Chana Sar b'Peshalea, Avram Yehuda ben Gisha, Malka bat Grace, Shoshana bat Mili, Miriam bat Bashi, Bashi bat Shprinza, Avigail bat Kovi, Yaakov Romer Chana, Avi Moshe ben Mindel, Tom Bastoni, Pat Cockrell, Murray Bradwell, George Patinos, Mordechai ben Zelda, Minya Elka bat Sarah, Yudah Moshe ben Rivka, Rivka bat Chavshalisha, Roxanne Anthony, Yafa bat Rivka, Yudis Liba bat Fega, Sarah Liba bat Enya, Meryl ben Meir Gitta, Adam Kramer, Avi Moshe ben Mendochana, Rivka bat Esther. Hashta B'Gzoromar. Amen. O God, who has blessed our mothers and our fathers, our own mothers and fathers, and the matriarchs and patriarchs who began our nation, as you have blessed all of our loved ones over the generations and the centuries in the past, reach forth, O God, with your touch, and bless with healing and gentleness, patience and compassion, all those who are afflicted, all those who are ill. Keep them in your heart, O God. Keep them in our heart, in love and in prayer. And may the hands that fashion the universe reach forth and touch the individuals who are in need of care, of tending, of healing. Open your eyes, O God, to all those afflicted by this terrible disease, all those caregivers who are reaching out, exhausted and frightened, and still shouldering the responsibility to care for all of our people. Open your eyes, O God, to all those suffering as a function of these terrifying winter storms recently, and lift them up by placing an additional measure of courage, of resolve, of strength within their hearts. Watch over and bless all of your children, O God, for all are in need of your care, of your healing, of your power, of your love. And we all say, Amen. And now, if you're able to rise, ask that you rise for the Hagba, the lifting of the Torah. The Torah will be lifted and dressed in just a moment. And we rise. V'zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe livnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Dundai, 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 dai. 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 Eretz Yisrael b'li Torah, hikegu b'li neshama. Eretz Yisrael b'li Torah, hikegu b'li neshama. Dundai, 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 dai. 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 Remaining standing, please, as we return the Torah to the Aron. And prior to the eighth Chaim, a prayer for our country, it's on page 177, the bottom of page 177. May it be your will that our land be a blessing to all who dwell on earth, and may you cause all peoples to dwell in friendship and freedom. Speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. For all of them, from the least of them to the greatest, shall know me, and let us say, Amen. And the prayer for Israel on page 178. Avinu Shabashamayim Tzur Yisrael V'go Alo Borech et Medinat Yisrael Reshit Tzmichat Geulatenu. Avinu Shabashamayim, stronghold and redeemer of the people Israel, bless the state of Israel, the beginning of our redemption. Shield it with your love. Spread over it the shelter of your peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Help them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Deliver them. Crown their efforts with triumph. Bless the land with peace and its inhabitants with lasting joy. And we all say, Amen. Eighth Chaim is on page 184. Eitz Chaim hi lemachazikim ba v'tomcheha meushar deracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Please remain standing. And we turn now to the Ein Keloheinu on page 204, followed by the Aleinu in just a moment. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Micheloenu, Michadonenu, Michemalkeinu, Michemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Sheketiru, Avotenu, Lefanecha et Ktoret Hasamim. Aleinu is on page 205. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol la'tet gdula liotzer breshit shelo athanu k'goyei ha'aratzot velo samanu k'mishpachot adama shelo sam chelkenu kahem v'goralenu kechol hamonam V'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlochim hakadosh baruch hu shehu noteh shamayim v'yosed haaretz u'moshav yikaro b'shamayim mima'al shchinatu zo v'gavei meromim Hu Eloheinu Enod Emet Malkeinu Evezulato Kakatu B'Torato V'yadata Yom V'ashevota Elvavecha Ki Adonai Hu Elohim B'Shamayim Mimal V'Al Haaretz Mitachot Enod. Kakatu b'Toratecha Adonai yimloch leolam voed v'nemar v'haya Adonai Lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yihyeh Adonai echad o Shema echad. In a moment we recite the mourner's Kaddish, found in the Siddur on page 207. We have a list of names, of course. We mark yortzites and members whom recently we have lost. If you know of someone in your own life who has recently died, please mention that person's name aloud in your own home. We remember Sam Perloff, Harry Duberman, Brian Malkove, Annie Reed Charnetsky, Joseph Feinstein, Eva Dunitz, Rose B. Powell, Leah Berger, Sidney Letterman, Marilyn Lubell, Max Wilson, Rebecca Perloff, Annie M. Rips, Miriam Jet Buckley, Henya Friedberger, Benjamin J. Mitchell, Sarah Abelson, Samuel Brown, Celia Plotka, Dan Burson, Pearl Brook, David L. Casper, Max Mendel Muchnick, Eddie Unger, and those whom recently our shul has lost, Jerry Olinsky, Ronnie Hoffman, Madeline Eplin, Leonard Capiluto. Yitzgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba. Amen. Be'olma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute. B'chayechon u'b'yomechon u'b'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'yimeru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam ol olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudisha b'rechu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran ba'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Our hearts are open to all those who are grieving, all those who are in sorrow. May God bless you. May you know that you are loved and your family members are remembered with love, honor, and respect. Just a few quick reminders, and then we'll conclude with the Adon Olam and Kiddush and Amotzi. I hope you have a glass of wine and a small bit of bread, perhaps some challah or a slice of ordinary bread, and we'll make motzi together in just a minute. Reminders tonight, Havdalah, 7 o'clock on Zoom, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you've been living under a rock for the past 11 months. If you're interested in the access code, just check the Shabbat Thought email that I sent out yesterday. Then went out to the shul members. If there are people out there who are watching and are not members and they're interested, contact me and I may be able to get that to you this evening after Shabbos ends, before Havdalah starts. Tomorrow morning, Krispy Kreme Roundup is at noon. Come by for a donut and schmoozing. Bring your own chair and a mask. Don't forget, it's the annual drive-by meeting. It's 1 o'clock. All you need to do is drive by, but in person, bring your ballot. If you bring your ballot, then you pave the way for us to have future congregational meetings via Zoom or other electronic platforms. If you don't bring your ballot, then we can't go forward. And the board of directors needs this to be taking place. So I'm speaking on behalf of the board in this regard. Please show up. It's 1 o'clock. Come by. Drop off your ballot. If you come a little bit earlier, you might get a donut and you schmooze a little bit. But you need to be in the parking lot at 1 o'clock tomorrow with your ballot in hand. Thank you very much. Monday, Tanakh study is on Zoom at noon. Story time for the toddlers is at 5:30. Tuesday, adult Hebrew class. It's a brand new class, just started last week, and there's time for you to catch up. Also on Zoom, Tuesdays 3 to 3:30. If you have any questions and you want to learn how to read basic Hebrew, reading basic Hebrew, contact me personally. And Tuesday, 5 o'clock, the Zoom study discussion. It's the spirit. The topic is, how do I maintain purity? And next Friday is Tot Shabbat on YouTube. And for right now, that's about it. Adon Olam is on page 211. Adon Olam and then Kiddush and Motzi. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Li'et Nasa V'cheptza Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra V'yacharei Kichlot HaKol L'vado Yimloch Nora V'hu Aya V'hu Oveh V'hu Yiyeh B'tifara V'hu Echad V'ein Sheni Lam Shelo L'hachbira B'li Reshit B'li Tachlit V'lo Oz V'hamisra V'hu Eli V'chai Goli V'tzur Chavli B'yet Tzara V'hu Nisi Yoman Noslim and Nat Kosi B'yom Ekra B'yado Av Kidruchi B'yet Dishan V'ya'ira V'imruchi Gaviyati Adonai Liv Elo Ira Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Li'et Nasa V'cheptza Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra. You know the song? Oh, once there was a wicked, wicked man. Remember that? And Nashsam Hamintashen. Kiddush and Motzi. Shamero B'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat. Lasot et HaShabbat. L'daratam Brit Olam. B'nei Oven B'nei Yisrael Lo Tili Olam Ki Sheshet Yamim Asa Adonai Et Hashamayim V'et Haaretz Uvayom Hashvi Shabbat V'inafash Al Ken Berach Ranot Yom HaShabbat V'ikatsheu. God bless the seventh day, made it holy. Stavre Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Before Hamotzi, I forgot one reminder. We put out the world's largest pushka for Purim. That was David's idea. Thank you, David. And we're raising some money for Jewish family services in Houston and in Austin, and their relief for people affected by the winter storms. So far, we've raised $250. Feel free to drop by. Just feel free. Drop on by. Cash, checks made out to the Ahavas Chesed. You can put it in the pushka, which is going to be in our lobby for the next some time or so. And we can send money off from our shul to people who've been afflicted terribly. And when we do that, then we'll be able to sit and enjoy our bread and our meal. If you want to stop by and visit, I'm under the portico until 12:30. The weather is good. We'll just schmooze just to see each other. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Good Shabbos. Until we see each other again. Lehitraot. Bye for now.